Hi, I'm David. Welcome to Auto Bunker HQ. Now, if you're a petrol head like me, then you're probably into a quirkier selection of vehicles than the average person on the street, whether it be 1960s British sports cars, 1980s French hot hatches, 1990s Japanese rally homologation specials. The list of niches is endless for those that love cars. But if you're like me, you probably haven't looked at the new car market for a while and the figures on what's happening out there in the marketplace. I had a look at the July figures from the SMMT, the Society of Motor Manufacturers and Traders, and I was truly shocked by some of the data that was in there. So I'm going to break down the 4 things that shocked me the most, and we'll get into them in this video. At number 1, we're not bothered about the rise of EVs, everyone knows about that. It's the absolute explosion of Chinese manufacturers, a really worrying trend. We'll look at that. Number 2, the implosion of 2 brands that were really big or have been really big in the past. We're going to look at Tesla and Jaguar. And then number 3, SUVs, the rise of the mini SUV. That's really caught me out. It's come from nowhere. And then finally, we're going to look at the Volkswagen Group and the domination of their brands in the British marketplace. So let's look at the most surprising part of the market to me, the absolute explosion of Chinese manufacturers. If you look at July 2024, they had 4.78% of the UK car sales market. If you roll forward 12 months to 2025 to July, they had 9.2% of the market. That's massive growth. They doubled their market share in just 12 years. All these vehicles coming from China and all imported. I'd be seriously worried if I was the European manufacturers. Now, look at BYD, Build Your Dreams in particular. They have more than tripled their market share in 12 months. They've gone to 315% growth year on year, and they've got 3,184 vehicle sales in July. And that was before or just as they were launching the Dolphin, which is their small sub £20,000 hatchback. So presumably that's only going to propel them even further forward. And it's interesting because they're starting to take sales away from MG, which have been the most historically successful Chinese brand in the marketplace. So there's definitely a war on Chinese territory happening over sales in the UK market, and I'm shocked by how much traction they've gained, and I wasn't fully aware of that or up to speed on that. The second most shocking part of the figures to me was to look at 2 famous or perhaps infamous brands that have suffered a big decline in their sales. So let's start with Tesla. They sold under 1,000 vehicles in July 2025. That's a 60% drop on this time last year. Could be due to the rise in Chinese manufacturing, or possibly due to the actions of their founder. Who knows? But a really big drop, and that's got to be painful for Tesla shareholders. The other one is, of course, Jaguar. 0 vehicles as they go through their rebranding and their remodeling. But this time a year ago, they sold over 1,000 vehicles. Seems crazy that they've just completely shut down while they go through this painful EV rebirth. They're losing a lot of revenue, and well, it seems such a shame that they can't keep something going while they regenerate their image and their model lineup. The third thing that really surprised me was the complete dominance of the small SUV in the car sales sector. If you look at what's happening on the street, maybe it shouldn't have been a surprise, but the July 2025 year-to-date figures, the SUV accounts for 8 out of 10 of the models in the list. Hardly any hatchbacks, no saloons, no estates. It's all about the small SUV. As a petrol head, am I interested in those? Not really. So perhaps it's just my ignorance on the market data. But wow, there's a lot of SUVs being sold out there. The fourth thing that surprised me, and again this is just me looking at the figures with a fresh set of eyes after lots and lots of years out of the auto industry, but was the complete dominance of the Volkswagen Group. If you look at all of their brands and add them all up, they accounted for over 24% of the sales in the British market. Absolutely incredible. I used to work for Ford way back when, and it was always nip and tuck about who was selling the most cars into the UK market. No longer, no more. Volkswagen have completely run away with the market. Looking at the wider headline sales figures for July, just over 140,000 vehicles sold in total. That's 5% down on this time last year. Does make you think that people are tightening their belts and holding off buying new cars. I know there was some confusion around the electric car grant and which vehicles that would apply to. Around half the market was fossil fuels, just over in fact, so combination of diesel and pure petrol powered vehicles. Battery electric vehicles made up 21% of the market, and the remainder, with a strong growth since last year, was hybrid vehicles, whether it be mild hybrids or plug-in hybrids. So there's clearly a big demand in people bridging the gap with a bit of electric power, and people quite like the ability to buzz around town with electric power. 25% of the market in total. I'd love to know if you like to keep abreast of the new car sales figures, or are you more focused on classic cars and what's happening in your shed than worrying about what's happening in the new car marketplace? I think I've definitely been the latter, because these figures shocked me. Let me know if any of these statistics were a surprise to you, and I'd love it if you would follow and like this video so I can get some more content out soon as. Thanks very much. Bye.